The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be here because it's Wednesday and we are delighted that in just a few minutes we're going to have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh here to answer your questions in our segment that we call Ask Dr. Doreen. At the start of the show, I like to remind you of a couple of different things. This entire show is meant to be interactive. Emily's going to show you some of the ways on the screen that you can get in touch with us, that you can watch the show. I'm going to remind you that the only place that you can watch the show live is at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, there is a box. You can, right now it's active, and you can put your cursor there. You can type whatever you'd like. Send your questions by just hitting the enter button. You don't have to log in. There is no asking for your information. There's no credit card. It's all free. This is a great resource for you and a wonderful opportunity for you to ask questions of a true visionary in the field of autism. So take advantage of that now. The feature is open. Some of you have been writing in on Facebook. There are already some questions there, but we will be taking your questions. So without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome. It is time for Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
You look so spring-like today.
Yeah, I heard this morning that it's going to be 98 degrees.
Wow.
So I was like, all right, sounds good.
Well, you look lovely. So thrilled to have you here and to have you answering questions from parents, teachers, and practitioners and individuals on the spectrum. I always like to remind everybody at the start of the show that it's such a thrill to have Dr. Granpeesheh here, but we never want to appear to be answering things with a child-specific answer. There's a good reason for that, because when you write things in, and you can be as specific as possible, in fact, you prefer it when they're as specific as possible.
Yeah, the more information, the better, obviously, but still, there's no way that an email could give me enough information to be really clear about one specific child.
Right, and so we would never, that would be a disservice to our kids if we made it seem like we could consolidate what they're doing in an email message. Right. But still, we've been doing this for a while, and you guys report to us that it's really helpful to you because you answer questions for us that give us more questions to ask and directions to go and things to look into that are so helpful.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this show. I really hope that we can help some families gain access to what it is they need. Yeah.
And that's what they write back to us. So I want to start with a question that came in this morning on the Facebook feature. Somebody said, my daughter is almost 4 years old and was diagnosed in November with high-functioning autism. We are on a waiting list for ABA and occupational therapy. While her tantrums have lessened, at times they are hard to control. She gets so upset that it lasts anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour, and she throws up several times. It's something we've heard before. How do I calm her when nothing comforts her as it normally would?
So there's, so many really important things in that short email that we should address. One thing I think that helps a lot for parents to understand is that if you have a really good understanding of what does the diagnosis mean, and the diagnosis of autism, really, if you want to simplify it, I'm not going to go into diagnostic terminology, but if you really want to simplify it, it means that the individual is having a hard time let's say, communicating, interacting with the environment. And that could be because they have, you know, if it's a high-functioning child, perhaps they have social delays, which really just means they don't read social cues appropriately, they don't know how to interact with people, and so on. The child could have language delays, which doesn't mean they don't have speech. They could have speech, but when it gets to like very advanced pragmatic language, like understanding inferences from language and so on, they could be delayed. And often they're the presence of these sort of repetitive behaviors as well in autism. And so when you look at those three things, you have to notice that nothing I said listed tantrums, problem behavior. And it's really important to note that, because then you have to ask, then why does my child have an hour-and-a-half long tantrum? And really, the response to that is we all tantrum when we can't express what we want. We can't, and we don't understand that perhaps we will get it, but we have to wait. So it's tantruming, aggression, all of this is just functional communication. It's dysfunctional communication, I should say. It's a way of expressing to the world what you want, or what you don't want, right? So what you want to avoid. So when I see my kids, and the biggest concern for the parents is always like, why does he spit? Why does he pinch? Why does he hit? Why does he throw stuff? I always tell them, like, if he had language, what would he say instead of that? Very simple. You know, he'd probably say, I don't really want to do this, or leave me alone. I feel best when I'm engaged in this activity, or I'm not ready to give this activity up and go do the next thing. And you have to understand, from the child's perspective, there's no real timeline. A lot of our kids don't understand time. They're too young, first of all. And they don't understand, okay, if I give this up, I trust the universe that it'll come back to me in 10 minutes. I only have to tolerate it for 10 minutes.
Right.
They think my favorite thing is being taken away from me, and now I have to cope with, like, nothing in my environment that I enjoy, you know, perhaps sensory stuff that's bothering me. I mean, you know, so it's harder for our kids because they're not comfortable in their environments to begin with. And so when they find things that they really are connected to, it's very hard for them to give it up. And so these tantrums and all these types of things are just like the child saying, you know, I don't want to do this, or I want such and such object, or leave me alone. It's communication. So then you have to ask, for this child, why does the tantrum go on for an hour and a half? I would guess, and I'm just guessing at this, that, well, first of all, believe me, I have had experience with children who will tantrum for 2 hours. So, but having said that, usually it's under two circumstances. One is it's an extinction burst. An extinction burst, what you do with a tantrum is you simply remove all attention from it. That means you completely ignore it. Yeah. That's extinction. Now, extinction is hard for people to understand because they think that they can communicate with the child during extinction. You can't. Right. You cannot say to the child, stop tantruming. You can't say to the child, if you keep tantruming, I will do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. I don't like it when you scream and cry. You can't have any communication with the child. In fact, you can't even have eye contact. Yeah.
Can I just say two things really quickly? That we all understand that when you say that, but when they're in the moment, it's like we have a hole in our head and we lose touch with reality, and we all do it. We try to have a conversation with the kid.
Do you know what? I know that. I mean, I
it's
swear
really
to God,
ridiculous,
I know.
But we do
like
it.
I said, like my daughter, my little one, used to tantrum a lot when I was trying to get her to sleep, I think it was. I don't remember what it was, but it was when she was much younger. But like, I would literally sit outside her door and let her tantrum, and every minute felt like an hour. It just won't pass. You know, like, how could that be 3 minutes? So I know, and I've gone through it with hundreds of kids at CARD, but it is a different feeling, of course, when it's your own child, because you have all this anxiety around it, and you're thinking, like, am I hurting my child? Am I doing the wrong thing? And you're not. I promise you, you're not, especially at that age, because I came to the conclusion the other day, showing off about my kids, but I love my kids. They're so polite and well-mannered and good kids, and I went through a lot of these feelings of am I being too harsh, too behavioral? Is this right? All this when they were young, and Nikki, who now works for you,
who's amazing.
Well, thank you.
She is an amazing young woman.
I love her to death. She is amazing, but when she was I think 3, and she would complain about something or start having a tantrum and meltdown. She was so amazingly trained well that you could say, Nikki, please go to the hallway and tantrum because we don't want to hear it. And she would literally walk, close the door, scream and cry for a bit, and then come back all done. And that's, the truth is, we don't necessarily have to get to that point. She was just amazing. But the truth is that the tantrum gets longer because we're interacting. And every time you interact, every time you give the child the impression that you might now intervene, it just lengthens the process. Because from the child's perspective, what's going on in their head is, wait a minute, I used to get what I wanted when I cried. So how come they're when I screamed? How come they're ignoring me now? And the sooner the child comes to the conclusion, so the child says, oh, how come they're ignoring me now? Maybe I should scream louder. Maybe I should make a bigger fuss. Maybe I should do something that'll freak them out more. Because really all they're trying to do is get your attention. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe I'll punch the wall. Maybe I'll do this, that, or the other thing. And if when they do something a slightly different or more drastic, you react, that then becomes the new communication. The new communication now is, oh, okay, so screaming on its own didn't work, but if I punch the door, it'll work. So from now on, when I'm really upset, I'll punch the door. And whether you teach it to a child at 3 or 10, it doesn't matter. The point is, the child has to realize one thing. Tantruming or challenging behavior, all that sort of stuff, will not get a reaction. Some sort of adaptive behavior, like I need a break, I want to hold on, just touching an icon, whatever it is that the child's capable of, will get a reaction. And when you make that differentiation, the child does stop. I have never had a child whose tantrums didn't stop, ever. And I can say that clearly. It's very different from saying every single one of my kids have improved. I can't say that, because there have been a handful who haven't benefited. But I can say that there has never, ever been a child where when you made the appropriate modifications to their environment, they didn't stop challenging behaviors. Challenging behavior is communication. All you do is you teach the child a different type of communication. That's it. So it's very irritating and sad and scary for this mom because they haven't had intervention or help. This, coming from a lifelong behaviorist with thousands of hours of experience, you can't do this by yourself. You need help. And honestly, the best thing when you're dealing with this level of an hour and a half tantruming is just to, right now, all you can do is walk out of the room and close the door. Believe me, our children are not self-injurious in the manner that the original definition, a lot of parents are afraid, Shannon, to leave their child because they think the child's self-injurious. Self-injury is very different. Self-injury in the old days, I haven't seen self-injury in a long time. Self-injury is really when the child injures themselves for a stimulatory or peaceful, for a reason that's intrinsic, not for attention seeking. When a child does injurious behavior to seek your attention, it will only happen when you're there. Our kids are very, very smart. I've had so many of our kids walk where the parent walks out and the child stops immediately and looks and sees oh, there's nobody here.
You actually show a video in conferences that's from America's Funniest Home Videos.
Oh yeah.
That is hilarious because it's, and it was very eye-opening to me the first time I saw you do this in a conference, because it occurred to me that I don't videotape tantrums. Right? That's something we just don't do as autism parents.
That's such a great idea to do that, actually.
And it's a funny video because it's a mom who's behind the camera, and there's 2 different ones, but the one I'm thinking of, there's a little girl, and she's in her little zip-up sleeper, fur, and she's throwing a tantrum, right? And she's just throwing her head back and throwing herself on the floor, and the mom steps just behind a wall, and she's videotaping, steps behind the wall, and the child stops crying, gets up, and walks over to the wall, peeks around the corner, says, oh, that's where you are, and she's fine in that moment, and then as soon as she sees her mom, throws her head back and
falls on the floor
and starts screaming. And they do it like over and over
it's
again.
Hilarious, right? The mom keeps moving around, and the child just follows the mom, so that baby, and it's a baby. It's like it's maybe 2 years old or 18 months old.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah.
And it really, when I saw it the first time in conference, and you were talking about the fact that a lot of times they're doing it for our attention, right? And they're always doing it for a reason,
always.
But in that moment, I had never been able. I was too busy having my emotions to see that. And when you showed it in a neurotypical child, I could see it and laugh at it, right? And realize that I didn't have to have the panic that I was having.
Well, and I don't remember, was it you? Perhaps it was you, or a mom said this to me, and it was very valuable when they said this to me, and this was exactly on that video. And I was showing that video, and the mom said, I think after the video, do you realize that, the important thing about that is all kids do this, right?
Right.
But the interesting thing that she said, which really changed my thinking forever, was, do you realize that all kids do this, but with typically developing kids, we are taught as parents to get to a point where it's no longer acceptable.
Right.
And with our autistic kids, it gets to a point where they get the diagnosis.
Right.
And once they get the diagnosis, then nobody knows what's okay or not anymore, what rules apply. Right. And then you continue, and this is so true, because as parents, of course, we're trained, right? You have a baby, the baby can't communicate in any way.
Right.
And so you have to learn to, as a mom, read what they want. Are they hungry? Are they sleepy? Do they need to be changed? What's the story here? Do they need entertainment? You always figure it out.
Yeah.
And when we have kids that are eventually diagnosed with autism at 2 or 3, we continue to do that because we feel responsible to do that, because how else is the child going to communicate or interact or get their needs met? Yeah. So we end up doing that. And that's what makes it harder, because the child then never really learns to self-calm, self-soothe, self-regulate, to be able to actually calm themselves down to a certain point, to be able to get to vocalize instead of tantrum, all that sort of stuff. So, not to blame anyone. This is normal. Everybody does this. Most parents do these things. I guess the final answer to this parent is, identify always the function. Why is your child tantruming? 99% of the time it's because the child wants something or wants to avoid something. Yeah. Make sure if they want something, they don't gain access to it when they're tantruming. Instead, make sure they get access to it when they're somehow asking for it appropriately.
Okay.
And having just one quick caveat is, if your child's tantruming and you are predicting that it's due to something like injury or pain, that's not a situation you want to put it on extinction. Let me just say that.
Yes.
That's very important. And that's why identifying the function or the reason a behavior is happening is very critical.
Okay. I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
And one of the things you said, if we see that it's attention-driven, you said even closing the door, a lot of us are super, super paranoid. And I remember when this was talked about with me, because my son was a swiper and a knock things over, and I was worried that he was going to knock something over and hurt himself in that way because he didn't understand cause and effect. Is it okay to set up a video camera where they can't see so that you can still be watching, but they don't see that you're paying attention?
I mean, nowadays, it's so easy. I mean, you just put a video camera, or all baby cams are video cameras nowadays. So absolutely. Okay. I mean, I absolutely want parents to feel comfortable with
you got it.
I wish I had that when my kids were young.
Yes. We did that all the time.
I mean, the baby cams are like $100 and they're videos.
It's less even now. Yeah. That's what I watched all the therapy on the little video monitor, because I wanted to see what was happening, and it was a great way for me to learn.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So wonderful. And then in terms of, because this mom also says she's on a waiting list for ABA and occupational therapy, and that's a really horrible place to be in, right? Where you've been told it's important, early intervention is important, now sit around and wait until we can figure it out and get you on the waiting list. Now, we've talked before on the show about IBT.
Thank you. I was going to
Institute
say
for
that, yeah.
Behavioral Training. And there are some great trainings on there that are in 3 different categories for people who are practitioners, there's teachers, and for parents, that we could certainly recommend that she go there and look at some things about, dealing with like that extinction procedure.
Challenging behaviors.
Yes.
I think there's a section under, and I would recommend that you start with the parent section.
Yeah.
And that you go also perhaps look at the teacher section, and if you still feel uncomfortable or unsure about it, go to the professional section.
Yeah.
In each section, you're going to find a whole series of modules on how to deal with challenging behavior.
Yeah.
And this is a live person in the studio sitting there telling you exactly how to deal with these things. And I think there might even be a lot of video footage in the presentation. And I just feel like once you get the hang of it, it really does help.
Yeah. And I really just want to say, I wish we had that when we were in our waiting period, but my husband and I are enjoying using those IBT trainings. In fact, I think yesterday my husband did the one on compliance.
Oh, really?
So, which is life-changing to be able to say, sit and watch this, let's tighten up the bolts on this.
I swear.
It's a wonderful thing, and they're really ridiculously inexpensive.
Yeah, like $10 or $12 or something.
$7.50 for some of them. So really amazing, but also want to say to everybody that if and for some of you that's out of reach, and I get that too, if it is, you can go to ACT today and apply for grants for that kind of training. Oh
my gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, thank you for making me think of that. But yes, we will, that'll be very easy for us to help fund for you.
So, take advantage of this time in a way that you never could before while you're waiting.
Right.
And we love that you wrote in. And also the thing about the throwing up, that we do hear about that. I think it's very upsetting to parents.
Yes.
But it's not all that uncommon.
No, it's not uncommon at all. And I think I'm not sure that I would say that a 3-year-old would easily be able to do that, but I think it's due to the level of frustration that the child reaches that they simply start to do that. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail here because, as I said, I don't know the child, but there are a lot of things you can do to kind of reduce the duration right off the bat. I mean, there's other ways to interrupt. As I said, you need to identify the function, like why is it happening? And as long as you're not feeding into that particular reason, there's a lot of other stuff you can do to distract the kid. I mean, think about if you leave the room and you have the ability to, like, I don't know, turn music on in the background, something, will distract the child.
Right.
If the reinforcer is your attention, then some other calming distractor won't necessarily make this worse. In fact, it'll make it better.
Yeah.
A lot of our kids don't even know how to self-soothe.
Yeah.
And that's like a really important thing,
Absolutely. Great answer. I think we should take a break and come back with answering more of your questions, so keep them coming in on our live feature. You can also put them on Facebook. So more with Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh here with us.
Hi.
A wonderful expert in the field of autism, been working in the field of autism now for over 30 years.
Thank you.
Which we really, I hate to admit that because no one would ever guess that to look at you. But the experience is there, and that's really the important thing.
Very much.
And we were just talking about during the break that we're getting ready to have a shift in the DSM. We're going to go to the DSM-5. And so next Wednesday, during this time, you're going to break it down for us, correct?
Yes, that's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and that's where autism is classified.
Yeah.
And for the last, since 97 or 94 or something, we've been on DSM-4, revised. And so it's time, the new one is already out. It's actually not out, it's I'm pre-ordered on it, so it'll come out soon. But yeah, I'm happy. In other words, it's certain that it's coming now.
Yes.
So, and I'm happy to go through it. It's quite different. It's probably, I shifted already from DSM-3 to 3R to 4 to 4R to 4TR.
Okay.
So it's changed a few times since I've been in the field. The last one from the training manual didn't change much, but this is a pretty big change.
Okay.
It's almost, I guess, as big as 3 to 4. It's a big change.
Okay.
Quite different. So
I know there's a lot of trepidation. A lot of us are concerned about what's going to happen and how it's going to shake down and what it's going to mean. And so I'm thrilled to have you next week explaining it to all of us, because we know that unless they push the date back later on in the month, it's supposed to become official this month that we're in.
Oh, yeah,
right
May
now.
will say. But it's they can't push it back anymore. It's at Amazon. It's out. You know what I mean? It's been published. But the very interesting thing for me is that it's a complete reversal, and I can talk about it next week.
Okay.
When we went from DSM-3 to 4, the idea at that point was, I think, to subdivide autism.
Right.
And this one is a complete reversal of that, and it's like, our subdivisions didn't work. Right. We're not going to divide. We're going to just go through a spectrum, and now we're going to categorize. I love the new categories and what you can do with it. I think it's terrific. We'll see.
Okay. So I'll be excited to have you explain that to all of us.
Absolutely.
We looked at it last summer when they had the preliminary one out that people could comment on.
Right.
And we looked at that one.
And
but I have no idea what happened. So they
didn't change the core concepts, but they added some modifiers.
Okay.
Which are terrific in my mind. I just think I like it.
Well, and I love hearing that, because there have been a lot of people who've been running that rumor mill to make us all afraid.
Right.
And we have enough fear.
I don't know what we would be afraid of. I think in the beginning a lot of people were saying something about it would affect funding, and I was looking at that and I was thinking, the only way it's going to affect funding is in a positive way, because there are some sources that don't fund, like Asperger's or PDD right now. And this now removes that and just kind of puts it on a spectrum. It could mess with things if the funding sources decided to say your child's not severe enough, because this new system kind of gives you a severity factor. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. There's always some way, I think, that our funding gets affected.
Well, there was that one article in the New York Times that came out that they had done and I don't know who did the research, but somebody sat down with where the new criteria was at that moment in time, which is not where it finished, and took a pile of files, real files, that were from, I believe it was 1993, and said if we were to apply the new criteria to these kids, how many of them would still be considered on the spectrum? And the number was about 50% of them. And I think that's where the panic ensued, that people said, is my kid no longer going to qualify?
Sure. But I mean, if you apply criteria to 1993, you really have an intention of proving something wrong, because 1993 is extinct. 1994, we had DSM-4.
It might be 1994 then. I might be misquoting it. But in any case, that was the number that came out, that half of our kids aren't going to qualify for it now. And that was where people were getting concerned. And
it's probably true. I mean, what will happen is that their diagnosis might shift from autism to PDD, autism to Asperger's. But quite honestly, who cares?
Right.
Like, because funding for it. Because funding now is much more broad, right? It's now ASD. But the thing for me is, I've always told parents this label, the single reason the label matters is funding.
Yeah.
That's it. Beyond that, the label means nothing.
Right.
And that is so important, because I think that people, there's such a huge level of fear with this label, and I just don't want people to see it that way, because it's so many different symptoms, and we just call it one thing. Well, let's start just breaking it down and fixing the symptoms, you know?
Yeah. Well, and my sort of feeling about it is we have so much to be afraid of anyway. If there's something we could, I picture it like suitcases that we carry around with us, the stuff that we're afraid of.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that we can go, I don't need to carry this suitcase anymore. Let's just put it down and leave it where it is.
Right.
And keep walking.
So I really do invite parents, actually, now that you've mentioned that, for next week, because I'd love to have a lot of dialogue with parents while we're presenting this. I'd love to get some more information about what their fears are and how can we help.
Fabulous. I love that. So that'll be next week's show.
Yes.
We've a very exciting week shaping up next week. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But let's get to another question. Hi, Dr. Reen. My question is, how important are peer models in a classroom to our kids that are high functioning? Does it really matter? My son has an opportunity to attend a well-known autism school in Columbia, Ohio. However, he would be leaving the mainstream third grade neighborhood public school with a full-time aide to attend a program of 10 kids with 3 teachers in the autism program. I just wonder, what is the priority? Also, the public school does not give any rewards to my son for when he shows independence from his aide. So why would he be trying to be independent? Very frustrating indeed to know how to wean him after 4 years of dependence. Thank you.
That's a great question.
Isn't it?
It is. And it's unfortunately one that I can't answer for your child, because there's different levels of support in academic settings, and that's all it is, really. So, and what's appropriate for your son, I'm not sure, because I don't know your son. But the way that I look at it is this: so you start with like the highest level of support, and this is funny that we were just talking about the diagnostic manual, because that corresponds to this actually completely. It's the more support you need, the higher the level of autism they consider you have now. But so let's say the highest level of support, and you have this on most IEPs, there's actually a little, like individualized education plans, at the top there's like a little tiny diagram, and it starts with, I don't remember, I think the bottom is the highest support, and it's kind of like in a special education classroom. And that means that every child in that classroom has autism or some other learning disability, and that there's a special ed teacher and 2 aides and that sort of thing. The next level of support would be in a special ed class with some pull out. Next level would be in a reverse mainstream program. So that means your child's like potentially in mainstream, but pulled out for a couple of hours to go into special ed. So there's all these categories. And the highest category is like regular ed without any assistance.
Right.
Okay, so somewhere in there is, special ed with their own aid. That's a very high level of support.
Yeah.
And then somewhere there's regular education with their own aid. And then, so in this case, what it sounds like is you're kind of doing a backwards. You're going from regular education with an aid to special ed. And I understand that in special ed, your child might not get full one-to-one attention, but nevertheless, it's a higher level of support because now we're having modified curriculum, modified instruction, and so on. So my perspective, depending on my child, I often don't like special education. The reason I don't like special education is more than just my child is going to be modeling other peers who have other behaviors. That's one reason for sure.
Right.
And keep in mind, I don't know with your child, but I assume if you're listening to this program, you're somehow in the world of ABA.
Yeah.
And ABA teaches children to imitate.
Yeah.
Period. So we've taught your child to imitate, and now we put the child around behaviors that are not appropriate. Okay, so of course he's going to imitate some of them, and you will have to teach him again what's okay and not okay. The other reasons, though, are there will be other children in the classroom who will need more attention.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen in special education, not always, it really depends on the teacher and the level of support the teacher has, is like, children, the children who have the worst behaviors or the most challenging behaviors are the ones that get all the attention. So the kids in the classroom kind of start to learn, oh, I need to act out more if I want attention. So that happens.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I don't like special ed. The most important reason is because the expectations on your child go down.
Right.
Like everybody starts to expect less because he's in special ed. And that is never good, because if you expect what you expect is the highest your child will ever achieve.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell my parents of my high-functioning kids especially, raise your expectations and stop treating him as if he can't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens in special ed. You get a lot of assistance because the assumption is you really can't do it.
Yeah.
So if you agree, and if it has been determined through testing, assessment, and so on, that your child really can't keep up with a modified curriculum in regular ed with an aid, then yes, special ed would be appropriate. Yeah. But if your child is able to keep up with the help of a regular with the help of a tutor or a shadow, and with some modifications to curriculum, which they have the right to have, then I would keep them in regular ed.
Okay.
And there's a million issues around this. Like, let's say if the child is being bullied in regular ed, then you don't want them in that environment. Let's say the school system says the teacher can't handle your child anymore because we only have 2 aides in regular ed and they can't spend all their time. Well, then you need to have an IEP and go get your child's own aide. There's a billion things about this, so I can't get too specific, but...
Well, I'm also going to throw a caveat into this because I don't think it's the same mom, but I'm aware of somebody who has been fighting a school district who does not want to make accommodations in any way, shape, or form, and has not been... how do I want to say this nicely? A school district who is not making progress with a child and they're not willing to change their goals.
Right.
And sometimes that can be so debilitating to a child if you don't have a team of people who are wanting to be forward-thinking and make progress and make room for a child. And if you had that situation where the school is not participating and you had the opportunity to go to a program who's making progress, that's got people on staff who know how to incorporate ABA into the classroom,
then go for it.
Go for that.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard for parents to know because, you walk in off the street and don't know what the school looks like, and they go, here, pick between these two things.
Right.
And you're thinking to yourself, well, I want the least restrictive environment for all the reasons you just said, but if the team won't play in that least restrictive environment and you're not going to get it done and you're not seeing the progress, sometimes I think there's starting to be a shift that sometimes the special ed program are the people who have adopted the ABA techniques and
they're the ones that actually know what they're doing.
Rough.
So now I feel so bad for families because, good Lord, there's just so much to deal with. Like, I can't even handle these things with my own kids with regular school. Honestly, there's just so many things.
It's overwhelming.
It is completely overwhelming. And so the one thing is that when we get to know our kids here at CARD, when we've spent a little bit of time with them, done a bunch of assessments, we really do go out. We observe the school multiple times. We've even had situations where schools won't allow us in, and the parent has to tell their school that this is my aunt or cousin or whatever, and we go in at 20-minute intervals just to see the child, because we really want to see what's being done. And so thank you for saying that, Shannon, because the truth is the answer is not about the restriction level or any of that. It is just determining with some level of assurance that where you're putting your child is the best for your child. And that's very hard.
It's hard
not
to
easy.
Know what that is. It's not impossible.
But let's step out of the crazy chaos of this universe of autism and say, okay, so who would be able to tell me what's appropriate? And I would say, you know what? Our assessment center would really be able to help you. We would really be able to help you. And all it has to do with is 2 sets of assessments. One is standardized assessments that look at every aspect of your child's abilities. And then there's our skills assessment, which essentially goes into very, very detailed analysis of your delays and skills of your child. And of course, the functional analysis, which looks at any behavioral issues if they persist. And those are with knowing all that, you sit down and you look at it and you say, this is what my child is, these are my child's tools. This is what he's equipped with. And what's the best setting right now? And it can change. That's the other thing. Don't be afraid, because you can always reverse, come back, go out, all this sort of stuff. It can change over time. Make sure it's not just sort of your best option of many bad things. You have to produce something that's good for the child. It's so much work.
And I will disclose too that I'm in this neighborhood too. You know, my child has been done with ABA now we're coming up on 2 years. I just don't even know how that could have happened.
And you can't find a setting that's good enough.
Well, no, you know, I mean, he's doing okay in school, but I recently had our old supervisor from CARD come and assess where he was now in the school, because we're getting ready to go to an IEP, and I wanted recommendations that made sense, and I didn't know that I was going to be the objective person to be able to do that. And so I had our supervisor come to the school and take a look. Actually, the school requested it, which was a lovely thing. And I went, oh yes, let's do that. And I've also talked to you about bringing him back in and having him assessed where he is, to see what do we need to do to continue to, you know. So please know that it's okay to be in a place as a parent where you go, I don't know, I'm not sure. Can somebody look at this and tell me?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And we often think that it's only it only pertains if we have a diagnosis. That's not true at all. I mean, it's a gradual process. You know, I mean, I have a lot of friends and people I know whose children just need they just need a professional to look at it and say, you know what, I think this could be potentially problematic because other kids don't do this. And it's really about that. It's about kind of like making sure the child fits into the society, I suppose, and then not necessarily eliminating their differences, which could be very functional and adaptive. But it is a hard situation. And, you know, worst case scenario, I started doing this for families back in, I would say like 3 maybe, where I was like really evaluating settings for families. And by 95, we'd done so many testimonies in court and all this sort of stuff, which is partially why California law changed, because families kept winning that there were no good settings for their kids in school. Things have changed a lot in California, and I'm pretty sure all over the country now. But, you know, there are special educational advocates and attorneys who, I want to say, you know, one that I've worked with here, of course, as you know, and I love very dearly, is Bonnie Yates here in California. She actually does work in other states as well. But the reason I love Bonnie is not only is she very knowledgeable about all the different states and the legal ramifications and what your options are and choices and so on. But she's a mom, and she has the compassion and she has the understanding of what all moms want.
Yeah.
And so, and she knows reality. She won't go where you shouldn't go.
Right.
But her advice for many years has been very sort of helpful to a lot of our families.
Me included.
Because there you go. Because we don't know, things that we worry about as families. If I do go to special ed, can I change that in the future? What are the benefits and all that sort of stuff. It's important to have that help.
And you mentioned that Bonnie's a mom, but I'll also mention too she's the mom of a son who recovered.
Right.
We've had Nick on the show, and he's an amazing human being. And I remember thinking, well, who better to put my trust in than somebody who's been there and done it?
Absolutely, and of course, Bonnie is a mom. When Nick was 5, was told, put him in special ed and save your money because it's going to be lifelong.
Right.
You know, and so, of course, her passion
now.
And her passion is she helps everybody kind of get their kids to the utmost, highest potential.
Absolutely amazing. We're going to take a really quick break and then come back with more questions with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, so stick with us.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign the petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon.
What you're going to do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're going to grab one end and then twist it, and then take the 2 ends and join them together, and then tape it together. And then I'm going to flip it around and take another piece of tape, and what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
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 With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us. So thrilling to be able to ask her questions. We've had a question come in from a parent who says, what do you recommend saying to kids and parents of kids who are mean or condescending to our kids? It makes me so mad when my kid is trying so hard and he gets a snide look from a kid for doing one little odd behavior. And I was just saying I really relate to this week. It just makes you mad, makes you furious. And do you recommend, I'd love to know your answer, do you recommend talking to the other child or talking to the parent of the child, letting it go?
I honestly, that's a good one for me. I have a hard time letting those things go. I'm very protective of our kids.
Yes.
But I don't know that, that might be my own issues. Sometimes, of course, you're better off letting things go because you can't, I guess I would say if it's a one-time incident and you're not going to have contact with that parent or child anymore, I'd probably let it go. Like, the best thing to do would be to let it go. Not that I'm not saying I would be able to.
Right.
But I'm just saying probably the best thing to do is to let it go because it won't happen again.
Yeah.
But if this is a child that's in your child's environment on a daily basis, then it could be problematic because, everything in our environment obviously influences who we are.
Yeah.
And one of the very important things for our kids, and we even have it in our curriculum, is kind of self-esteem issues. Yeah. And that's why I push very, very early on to help our kids identify and develop a skill. Because as the minute our kids find something that they are so far better at, then I just love it because no one's even in their stratosphere.
Right.
Like, our kids are just, You know, when you find talents in our kids, it's outrageous, right? I mean, it just goes to the maximum level, and sometimes not. I mean, sometimes you find a child who's actually pretty, like, well-rounded in a number of different things, and not necessarily an expert in anything. Doesn't matter. Help them find their passion and the thing that they get to be good at, and then really reward that. That is so important for our kids to feel good about. Any child, actually, any child. So now, what would I do? Often, if you, depending on the age of the child, if you go and talk to the other child, two things will happen. Either the other child will actually kind of get scared and back off, or they won't get scared. They'll get, angry and go tell a parent, right? Yeah. In which case things could get a little bit more chaotic, because the parents will probably either contact you or contact the principal, etc. So sometimes the best thing to do is to go to the admissions or principal's office or whatever and say, I'm having this issue, I need to talk to you, how are we going to handle this, because I'm not letting it go. Either we need to talk to this child or to this family, and usually the principal, I think in many cases, will say, let me talk to the child. And if things don't change, then you do need to get the family involved. But having said that, it's not common. Maybe it is, maybe it's even, I don't know, but my experience has been is that I don't often find families who come in and say, yes, you're right, my child kind of screwed up.
Right.
Often,
I think you're right.
The family will feel the same, and the way that they're actually modeling for the child.
Right.
Now, so that becomes a little bit harder, but nevertheless, I'd still go to that level, because if you go to that level, the family and the child will kind of avoid your child, so
there
that's kind of, and then
that's not a bad choice.
It's not a bad choice, because really all you want is that other child or family to not influence your child or have any, bad effects on your child. Sometimes our kids are not able to tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest with you. You should, if it's happening at school, you can either talk to the teacher and the school or whatever people and ask them to help and observe this. You do have the right to have your child have like a little video camera or something, or audio camera that identifies when people are making fun. Now, I want to say that one of our senators, I think Senator Perez, if I'm not wrong, just sponsored a bill that mandates anti-bullying types of education and so on. I think that was yesterday.
Yes, we actually are going to be talking about it with Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson in the next segment. So yes,
and that's beautiful. I loved that. When I saw it, I was like, oh, this is fabulous. Yay. Why didn't we think of this? What a great bill to write. And so I think that there's a lot of this going on. We do need, I think that bill actually for California at least produces a call-in center or something where people can go for guidance and help with this. It's so pervasive. It's so crazy how much of that happens right now.
It is.
And, I've said many times, I wish that we would be able to put together, it requires a lot of time. If it was possible to put together some, peer groups or parent groups even that would go in schools and educate kids. Because the more education they have about autism, the more things change.
Yeah.
You know how kids are extremely when these news stories come out, like the kids who are extremely athletic, spectrum kids who are very, made the basketball shot and it goes viral, right? Or that whole program about the individual who has photographic memory and they're in an airplane and you can see and draw maps and stuff.
All of Paris after seeing it for 1 minute.
Right, and it goes viral. Or there's a lot of stories about our kids who are very musical and can do crazy performances and stuff. That goes viral. So those are the pluses of autism. Those are the beautiful sides that, and it's not just that's not just what autism is, obviously, but it does influence other kids, because other kids start to think of our kids now as whoa, like he could be, I wonder what kind of special talent he has.
Right.
And there's a level of respect that goes with it.
Yeah, you're right.
Versus I think they make fun because they kind of associate our kids with maybe severe mental retardation or something like that. On autism, I think the more kids understand about autism, the cooler it becomes. And again, it has to do with empathy and how the school deals with it. I mean, my kids all went to Chaminade, and Chaminade is a pretty fantastic school when it comes to teaching kids empathy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen the way, it's just unbelievable. I've learned a lot from Chaminade in terms of they just do so many different activities. There's still some bullying going on, but I have to tell you, it is not tolerated.
Yeah.
And they just teach kids to help each other and to have empathy and to have understanding and kindness. And so that's the sort of thing, I mean, it's not enough, but it's much better than it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely essential. Emily, do we have time for one more question? Okay, she says we have time for one more.
You had mentioned something about a teenager.
Yes, I'm looking at there are a bunch of different questions here to choose. There is one about a young woman who has Asperger's. The mom writes in and says, my teenage daughter who has Asperger's likes to dress provocatively. She likes the attention she gets from men, and I don't think she understands it fully. I'm terrified. How do I get her to understand she's high functioning, but emotionally is about age 8?
If she's emotionally at age 8, just don't allow it.
Okay.
I mean, at 8, you're not going to have the comprehension of the dangers associated with provoking or dressing provocatively.
Yeah.
Because really, there's 2 reasons, I suppose, if you break these things down. I always try to question social rules so that I understand them myself. And I guess, the social rule about not dressing provocatively, there's 2 aspects to it. One is that it invites danger. I suppose that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is perhaps cultural or family rules and stuff like that. You just don't want to give the impression of, open to do wrongdoing or whatever it is, right? I mean, you have a message for the universe, I suppose, as a family, and that doesn't fit. I think definitely the social, cultural, familial norms will be too hard to explain to her. No question, she won't understand that.
Yeah.
These are our family rules is a different way. It's like saying, okay, this is just the way it is.
Right.
And I don't know that you can go too far beyond that with someone who has an understanding of an age 8. It's too hard to go beyond that. The danger aspect might be a way that you can teach the child. I mean, you can take it, but I don't know the child well enough. If it's a child who has problems with perspective taking, for instance, which a lot of our kids do,
absolutely,
then your child won't understand how other people see her.
Right.
She's a teenager, but she won't recognize, and that might be the biggest problem.
Yes.
Because she doesn't see that men will give her attention, but they're giving her attention because perhaps they want to use her, or they see her as an object.
Right.
That's just too advanced for her.
It is.
Or she might also get attention from other teenagers because she is the one that gets attention from men.
Right.
So I mean, it's a pretty bad cycle, and I would say you need to, as a family, probably make some rules in relation to what's allowed and not allowed.
Yeah.
The only way I would be able to try explain that is the danger factor of where if you provoke a man or you are provocative, this kind of attention may lead to X, Y, and Z, which is scary.
Yes.
And that's totally the family's decision how far they want to go.
Great. We had one other thing that I wanted to read. It's more of a comment because when we had Nikki on the show and we talked about the fact that she worked for us and that she was doing her homeless, she works with the homeless, we didn't disclose that she was your daughter at that time.
Right.
So somebody wrote in and said, Dr. Doreen, thank you so much for such an awesome daughter. Miller, who is so caring to the homeless. I love the segment last week about the work she does to provide a kindness to homeless people. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, no, that's going to make me cry.
Well, it's making me well up. But she is an amazing young woman. All of your kids are amazing. And,
Thank you.
And, you know, I love being able to say that because we see and hear you talking about but, you know, you really have lived it, and your kids are amazing.
Well, I hope so.
And Nikki, you know, here we are. We're all the
Nikki is amazing, yeah.
She absolutely. But I've had a chance to meet all of your children, and they're really remarkable people.
They're interesting
individual and well spoken.
Charlie will be the interesting one. Charlie's the one that I think is very similar to Mia. That's who I was as a child.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to have Charlie work for us when she's old enough. I've already got that in the works. That's in the back of my head.
Thank you so much for reading that. That's I appreciate whoever wrote that. I really appreciate that. Very touching. Thank you.
Well, and that we're out of time with that, but thank you so much. And next week we'll have you back specifically for a show to talk about the DSM-5, and you guys can be writing in questions about that.
That'd be great.
And then and the following week we'll get back to our regular answering questions about everything. But for this week, you want to be thinking about what do you want to know about the DSM-5? What are your questions that you would like to have?
About the new diagnostic criteria.
Yes.
And we'll put it on our social media sites as well.
So that you can see it and see what it looks like and formulate your questions. But thank you again.
Thank you
so much.
Always
have a wonderful
nice
day.
To have you back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. I missed being here last week, and thank you for doing that show.
No, it's a pleasure.
I literally walked out with minutes to spare. But we are going to take a break and look at the A Word, the amazing documentary being made here, an ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley. And this week, we're looking at Jack being introduced to a new therapist, seeing how therapists are trained, and the benefit that is to our children to be a part of that process. So really fascinating episode. Take a look at that. When we come back, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be joining me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon, and we've got Shannon and Nancy, and we've got so much news to talk about that I can't even think straight. There's so much that happened in this last week of Autism Awareness Month that needs to be discussed. So first, the A Word. We'll be back after this episode.
Whoa, happy feet there. Are you excited? Wow. Can I have a kiss? Thank you. He did tell Miss Miriam yesterday that he said poopies. She came and got me. We looked. There was none there, so we thought he was telling us stories. And 2 minutes later, there were.
Oh.
Wow. You did it, didn't you?
That's exciting.
She's Away's a new therapist and is having an overlap with Jessica. She will be doing fieldwork training until she is ready to independently work with a child. In order for She's Away to work independently, she must first pass a theory-based test, which is her knowledge of autism, and then second, she must pass a field evaluation, which is an overlap where she applies what she has learned.
If I want to do actions, then it looks like we're just doing maintenance right now.
Do the ones that he already has mastered.
And that's in a separate bag. Okay.
Yeah. And then you would just be asking, what is the little boy doing? The boy is playing.
Okay.
It should be his answer.
Okay.
Jack Riley, my name is She's Away.
Hi, She's Away.
Hi, She's Away.
Oh, very good. Give me a high five. Yeah. Okay, so, Jack, what would you like to do after we do a program? Would you like bubbles?
Puzzle.
Oh, puzzle? Okay, we can do puzzle.
Since we're using the puzzle as a reinforcer, don't give it to him yet until you do the program. Because now he's like, well, I already got the puzzle.
Yeah,
so
why should I?
Why should I work?
What is the boy doing?
He's speaking.
Yeah! Oh, good! One sticker. What is this man doing?
Prostitute.
Yeah! What is she doing?
She's kicking.
Yeah!
Good job.
What is he doing?
He's right there for city.
Yeah, that was great.
So bring up some other ones.
She's right there.
What are they doing?
She's hugging.
Yes, they're hugging.
Are you taking data as you're going along?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is he doing?
He's sweeping.
Oh, yeah, you're so good.
He's
So make sure you write the
The
stimuli
stimuli,
too.
yeah. It's like, I don't want to take too much time. Should I just be quick with it?
Yeah.
Okay. What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, they're playing. Good job, Jack.
Playing blocks. They are playing blocks. You're so smart.
What is he doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, another one.
Playing blocks. He's playing blocks too. He's playing cars. He's playing cars. That's right.
What is she doing?
He's playing.
Yeah. What are they doing?
He's playing.
Yeah, you finished. Good job, Jack Riley. Give me high fives. Can you do high fives? Yes. Okay. You ready to play with your puzzle? Okay, here.
Where's the cow? Where's the cow? Oh, good job. What does he say? What does the cow say? What does he? Moo. Hi, Monkey. You want a pillow sandwich? Okay, well, get me the pillows. Will you show She's the way how we do your pillow sandwich?
I want to see this pillow sandwich.
Okay, ready? One. Hold on. Can you let go? Hold on. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Squish! Pillow sandwich. It's a pillow sandwich. And here we get, there's a lot of opportunities for him to ask for things. Like if he wants more of jumping, more of pillow sandwiches. It's called man training.
Oh.
So what we're doing is we're giving him frames because he knows that I want and give me, but we're trying to teach him a new frame, which is can I have something. So how we prompt him is something that he really, really wants, like, pillow sandwiches or having you pick him up or something.
Okay.
And I've been prompting him with a partial verbal with just the cup, and he knows to say, can I?
Okay.
So, I mean, we could track that later, but this is just one of the opportunities that you can use to to do that program. Do you want more? Then you say, can I? Yes, you can have pillow sandwich. Come here. Crash! After, say can.
Okay, come here, let me see you. Oh, how fun is that?
Welcome.
Welcome. I don't know. I wasn't quite ready.
I'm never ready.
Okay.
But so thrilled to be here. Welcome for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
I know. I missed you last week.
I missed you too, and thank you for being a rock star and stepping in last minute. And we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show that I had some heart fun.
You did. You've already talked to the viewers about it.
Yeah, but in case you just watched Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and so I got a little nervous and had a little episode that morning and left and said, Nancy, can you man the ship without me? And Nancy, because she's awesome that way, went, yes. And then you came in and did Thursday's show for me too.
It was fun.
You are amazing.
Well, thank you.
And I continually am shocked and amazed by how much you get done. I used to look at Mother Teresa and think, you know what they always say about how everybody has the same number of hours as Mother Teresa, and I would go, no, I'm sure that the equation was different. She could stop time or something. But, you are like the real life manifestation for me of that, because she's a faraway figure to me, but I don't know how you get done what you do. And with all the things that you have to deal with, and then you said, yeah, no, I'll take on your stuff too. Really amazing.
Well, thank you. And you know what? That actually leads me to something I wanted to share with you today.
Okay.
I'm going to read you something that I think is very powerful.
All right.
It's called Anyway.
Okay.
People are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Love them anyway. Mm-hmm. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you win false and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. When you spend years building, what you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help but may attack you if you help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you've got anyway. All right. if you think this is from some self-help guru like a Tony Robbins, no. This is a sign on the wall of Shishu Bhavan, the children's home in Calcutta, that Mother Teresa...
Okay, I just got chills because I didn't know you brought that book in, and I referenced Mother Teresa. And when have I ever referenced Mother Teresa on the show before?
These synchronicities.
That just literally gave me chills.
This is one of my favorite books, Mother Teresa, Meditations from a Simple Path. Wow. And this actually, what I just read, hung on the wall of the orphanage in Calcutta where she did her ministry.
Wow.
And it sounds like something that maybe a self-help guru would say, because it talks about success and doing good and being honest and building. And you know, I think we don't really need a lot of self-help gurus. I think if we probably just read some of Mother Teresa's writings, we'd all be. That's the guru.
We've got it done. That's amazing that that's what you brought in.
Yeah, isn't it?
That's some synchronicity there.
Yes.
Well, girlfriend, you know, I truly, you are amazing the way she was amazing. And
thank you. Thank you. So I want to explain why I'm in
Yes, you're dressed a little different than you normally are.
Okay.
Still looking really cute and rocking it.
I've got on my Act Today t-shirt that I wore when I ran in the Act Today for Military Families 10K. And these are sleeves that my friend Shannon Griefer, who is an ultra marathoner, and I run and train with her, and she's raised lots of money for Act Today through her running. And she is going to actually join us, I think, sometime in May to talk about that. So she designs these sleeves. They're called Mo Bens, after her two sons, Mo and Ben. And they're fantastic because they're like, they keep the sun off you when you're cold, and you can pull them down.
I thought it was a whole shirt that you had underneath. So
no, these are sleeves. Aren't they fascinating? And she does them in bamboo and in fleece.
Does she do them in the big variety? Because that wouldn't fit on my wrist. But
she has them in all kinds of varieties. And I run with her and got back into running because of Shannon. 6-7 years ago, I returned to marathon running after a 20-year absence, and it was just, she has really been a great coach for me. We had a shoot today with the LA Times because Chris Erskine, who writes a fabulous column, is writing about Shannon and our running group and her doing her ultra marathons. So it was fun. I was out at 8 o'clock running up and down mountains in the Amundsen Ranch in this. And so then I thought, you know, I was going to race home, get dressed, and I thought I'll just wear my running stuff because we're going to be talking, we're going to be showing the Act Today for Military Families run.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I want a cuter t-shirt than this, Shannon.
And you mentioned this.
Okay.
You brought a graphic to show.
I brought this one, Holly Rod, which I got at one of her fundraisers, Holly Robinson
And it's very cute.
Very cute. It says, J'adore Holly Rod, and it's got the autism sign, and it's a tank, and it's fitted. You know, women really don't like these boxy tees. They're not very flattering.
Well, for the big girls, we do. But but I hear what you're saying.
I want
something.
This
is very cute.
Yeah.
I would wear that over something.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask is if any of our viewers out there, you know, might be interested in helping us make a t-shirt, you know, donate some t-shirts, or even help design one for Act Today.
I'd love to see you have a little contest.
Little contest of a cute t-shirt.
Send a design that you think would be cute on Act Today.
You can go to our website, see our logo, which I have here. It's a lot, but we can cut it down. It could just be Act Today.
And if they pick your thing, we'll have you on the show.
Yeah.
And so maybe you're a graphic designer, or you know somebody is, and
contact us and let us know.
Yeah, we'll focus on your business, and make a design for them that really rocks it out.
Sounds good.
Would you want your logo, your current logo, incorporated or not?
I would want
to be surprised.
I'd like our logo incorporated.
Okay. All right. Fabulous. So you put together, there was just a tremendous amount of stuff that came out in the last week in the news. You know, normally when we have Autism Awareness Month, I feel like people store things up and it just gets dumped like on April 1st. But I sort of feel like it all dumped last week.
Yes. It all came out last week, and I'm actually shuffling my papers here to see where my first story is on blood, the blood test to detect autism.
Well, should we start with did you find it, or do you want to start with the placenta one?
We can start with the placenta one.
Let's start with the placenta, because I know that was a big
Putting my
deal
IFB back in here so I can hear Emily.
In the news this week.
Okay, so the placenta story. Okay. A story came out that a screening test performed on a newborn's placenta can help determine the risk of that child developing autism. And that is according to research done by the Yale School of Medicine. Knowing that there is a high risk of autism in a newborn child gives the parents a chance to watch for signs of the disorder and to use techniques that would reduce symptoms, according to Dr. Harvey Kleiman, the senior author of the study, which was published in Biological Psychiatry. We know that early intervention has a very significant impact on these children. From my point of view, because the prevalence of autism is 1 in 50 now, they're using that statistic, I think everybody should be screened. I say that's a great idea, Dr. Kleiman. Usually an autism diagnosis isn't made until the child is 3 or 4 years old. Kleiman points out that such interventions can hurt and may help a child on the autism spectrum learn to speak or develop social skills earlier.
Right.
Now, the question is, where can we get this screening test?
Right.
And how can we make it available to the public?
And is insurance going to cover it?
Right.
And
so that is something that they've already got. As to when it'll be made available to the public, the information was not given on that.
Right.
Okay.
So, but something to be looking forward to. I do think there are all these new things, ways of identifying early. And when we know, I know that's frightening to everybody, but if you knew that your child was at greater risk for it, there are a couple of things that you could be doing in the first year of their life and certainly in the first 18 months of their life that may potentially prevent it from happening.
Yes.
So that's really encouraging to me.
So this was the placenta test, a screening test.
Yeah, and there's something about the
newborn's
wrinkles.
Placenta.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've had the baby. You're not having, you've had the baby. They're looking at the placenta and seeing if the risk factors are there. I think it's really cool science.
And I found the blood test.
I did too.
Okay. You want to do that one?
Sure. So what we have here is the largest prospective multi-site autism clinical study offering a promise of earlier diagnosis for improved outcomes.
Okay.
The same kind of thing that we were just talking about, but with a different way of looking at it.
Okay.
While children can exhibit symptoms of autism spectrum disorders, ASDs, before 18 months, the current average age, as you just mentioned, is around 4.5 years still. Does that offer you any solace? Because I know you constantly, we all kick ourselves about when our children were diagnosed.
Yes.
It's the average is still 4.5. That's a little shocking to me, right?
It just makes me realize how important the mission of ACT today is to get people early treatment and early diagnosis.
Absolutely.
It does shock me that the current age of diagnosis is 4.5 years.
It does to me as well.
I would have
job
thought
not done.
3.
I would have thought 3 too.
Wyatt was diagnosed at 3, but he was misdiagnosed as higher functioning than he is.
Yeah.
And I did not hear about ABA therapy until I heard Dr. Doreen speak at a conference when he was 4.5.
Yeah.
So that's where it's one thing to get a diagnosis, but if you have a diagnosis and your child's not getting any of
and
the
everybody says there's the diagnosis, go home.
Yeah, go home.
What
see
do
what you can do. Right.
Yeah.
And you put them in, you do what the best you can. You put them in a preschool where they say they've got early intervention, which they did not in my son's case.
Yeah.
And so I was shocked that not only did I get a late diagnosis, because Wyatt could have been diagnosed at 2, but I was not given the information after the diagnosis that was correct.
Yeah.
So that's, I think,
I always talk about the fact that I got incredibly lucky.
Getting the right information.
I got the right information. I was standing at the right place at the right time to get the right information.
Okay.
And I do think a shiver goes down my spine every day to think about what if I hadn't been where I was standing when I was standing.
Because Jim was diagnosed at what?
He was diagnosed at 2.5, but shortly after he was diagnosed, I got sent to the home of parents who had a child here at CARD, and I said, my child got a diagnosis of autism, and he said, let's stop what we're doing. Let me call my wife, have her come home from work. Here's some books. Here's a CARD pamphlet.
Perfect.
Here's what you're going to do. Here are the troubles that you're going to have, and here's how you're going to overcome them, and just walked us through it. And they were such amazing people that they're still in our lives, and I thank God for them every day, that about 1.5 years into therapy, when our landlord died and he hadn't been paying the rent, we'd been paying the rent, but he hadn't been paying the mortgage, so we were being evicted.
Oh my gosh!
Like when you go, really.
It's what I call living in the world of autism, and life goes on.
Well, this family helped us find a place that we could move to pretty much overnight. These are the kind of people they are.
Yeah.
That's how lucky I am.
Right.
That isn't because I was brilliant and decided we'll go to card.
Yes.
That didn't happen.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to afford it and who to ask and what to do.
But you were educated by the right people.
But I got lucky. If I hadn't met them, I don't know where my child would be.
Well, you know what? I'm going to reframe my experience right here and now.
Okay.
And I'm going to say I got lucky that at 4.5, I got access. Because some families go their whole lives without getting it. Well, so I'm going to reframe kicking myself and saying, why couldn't I have done it earlier, to the fact that I got lucky and that because of my journey, I have found my true calling in life.
Yes.
That's what I preach to everybody. Your disability is your opportunity. I better start being the message. So right here, right now, I'm going to say, I am blessed.
Amen to that.
Okay.
All right. So back to the story about...
Come on, let's go back.
Okay, back to this blood test.
You can tell we like to talk. Can you tell we like to talk? It's kind of, we're kind of like the Hoda and Kathy Lee of the autism world. We just kind of can go on and on.
There we go. Are they going to ask us to have no makeup too for one day? Okay.
I'll do it.
All right. So they're saying that this 4.5, it's well past the age of when we see it's optimal to start the behavioral therapies. So Synap DX Corp launched a 660-child, 20-site clinical study focused on the evaluation of its proprietary blood-based test. So it's a blood test that they're saying, and they're going to test it on 660 children at 20 different sites. Because we're always looking, does this cover a bigger group?
Yes.
It measures the difference in RNA gene expression to provide families with an objective ASD risk score for their child to help clinicians make faster, more accurate referral decisions. And the quote that we have from Jeremy Venstra Vanderweel, that's a name from Vanderbilt University, says, treatment for autism is most effective when the disorder is identified as early as possible. We know this, but it is often difficult for families and physicians to distinguish the early signs of ASD that could lead to a full evaluation. We see hundreds of families each year who have struggled through the ASD referral and evaluation process. We can attest to that, right? If a blood test, which is definitive instead of saying, well, your child is here on the spectrum. If a blood test could indicate ASD risk, it would help families and physicians know when to refer a child to an ASD expert, potentially leading to earlier treatment and better outcomes.
Okay, so this is something they're going to do. It's not completed yet.
Right.
And I think it's fantastic. It's going to include Boston Children's Hospital, Mount Sinai Medical Center, Nationwide Children's Hospital, UC Davis Mind Institute, and Vanderbilt University among the 20 sites in the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
We applaud you for this effort. Yeah. And I also want to say, it will get you in touch with, if this comes to pass and it gives us answers earlier, who could be at risk, it will allow parents not only to seek early intervention, but to also use their own intuition as to what they should be doing in other areas. Medically, biomedically, if you want to follow some of that path, if you want to try, if you believe you should take your child off dairy from the very beginning, it could certainly... you can use your judgment on some of the areas of controversy that we really don't know the outcome yet. We really don't know that vaccines are totally safe. We really don't know that gluten and dairy, because there have been so many conflicting studies, but we have so much anecdotal evidence. As my child, your child,
absolutely,
we know they can't tolerate it. So it's going to allow parents to make more informed decisions earlier.
Absolutely. Really, really key.
Okay. So we did the placenta, and now the first vaccine. This one's really, really interesting to me.
Yeah.
A first ever vaccine created by the University of Guelph, which I don't know where that is. It's spelled Guelph. Researchers for gut bacteria common in autistic children may also help control some autism symptoms. The groundbreaking study by Brittany Piquinat.
We got some names today.
And Gulf chemistry professor Mario Montero appears this month in the journal Vaccine. They developed a carbohydrate-based vaccine against the gut bug, Clostridium bolte. C. bolte is known to play a role in gastrointestinal disorders, often shows up in high numbers in the GI tracts of autistic children. And this is the first vaccine designed to control constipation, diarrhea caused by C. bolte, and perhaps control autism-related symptoms associated with this microbe. It might take more than 10 years to work through the preclinical and human trials, and it may take even longer before a drug is ready for market, Montero said. But a significant first step in the design of a multivalent vaccine against several autism-related gut bacteria.
Okay, so, you know, again, these things that, and we'll keep you posted as we see these things come to fruition. And of course, another study that, this is a huge cautionary that they have identified a drug that they see is, the exposure to this drug is linked to autism.
And this is a seizure, a medication for seizures, correct?
Yes.
And
so
a lot of women take it. Valproate.
Okay.
Maternal use of valproate during pregnancy was associated with a significantly increased risk for autism in offspring, even after adjustment for parental psychiatric disease and epilepsy, a large Danish registry study. So they're saying valproate is already not recommended in pregnancy because of risk of malformations. Right there, I would say stay away from it.
Right.
But there's also a recent study that it may be associated with low intelligence in children exposed during pregnancy, and now we have shown it may increase the risk of autism. It is definitely a drug you want to avoid during pregnancy. Now, I don't know what the alternatives are if a woman has seizures and she needs to be on this medication, but certainly talk to your obstetrician, talk to your, I would say your obstetrician about this, right?
And in fact, they're saying here that the editorialists conclude that the use of this medicine in women who are childbearing age should be minimized. That it should it's one of those drugs that you really should be making a quantitative decision about. Do I want to stay on this? This is the only medicine that I can stay on. If you are on this medication and you're of childbearing age, I agree. Talk to your gynecologist.
Yeah. Now, I also want to add that it's not just used for seizures, Shannon. It's used for pain and for bipolar disorder. I've never heard of this drug.
Yeah, I haven't either.
And I'm pretty familiar with medications for depression and some other things that myself and many of my family members are subject to. But I've never heard of this, valproate. But if any one of you is on it, plan to have children, it sounds like alternatives should be explored,
you really
right?
need to have a conversation as soon as possible with your health provider.
Okay. So we had one more story before we go to break.
And then we're going to go to break and we have more.
I know,
because
we have
it was
a couple
really
busy big news week.
Yeah.
Scientists have found patterns of change in gene activity involved in autism in a study that sheds light on how environmental factors can work to turn certain genes on or off and contribute to the development of autism. And in the largest study of its kind, researchers analyzed data from 50 sets of twins to try to find out what might have caused one of them to develop autism, while their genetically identical sibling did not.
Right.
Chloe Wong of the Institute of Psychiatry at King's College London explained that epigenetic changes, this is a word we use here on the show, that we all should be aware of, affected levels or activity of genes without changing the underlying DNA sequence. Scientists think they are one way in which the environment interacts with genome. Importantly, epigenetic changes are also potentially reversible. So finding out more about them may point research toward the development of new medicines or treatments. And what my understanding of epigenetic is that risky environmental conditions, toxins, can literally change a child's DNA after they're born.
Yes.
So is that kind of your understanding?
That's my understanding of it as well.
Right.
And that we all in the autism community have to take notice of this.
Yes.
And be looking at this because this is an important area of research. And we had the opportunity, we were at ARI last fall, and there were a lot of different studies that they were doing, that they were presenting on that involved twins. And for the first time, I sat in one of the talks and saw it was Dr. Claire Lajean-Shea, an amazing woman who headed up a study for Autism Speaks on twins. But she was able to show definitively from her research, because it was the hugest twin study of its kind, that you can no longer look at, in a very extensive study, you can no longer look at this and say that it's all genetics, and you can no longer look at it and say that it's all environmental. You've got to look at it and say this is a case of epigenetics.
Yeah,
We've been saying that for a long time.
Meet environment.
Yeah, we've been saying this for a long time. You know, there's been the phrase that's been going around in the autism community about genes load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger.
Yes.
But, you know, this study has ended the discussion. We don't have to have discussion about it anymore. And I encourage you to look up Dr. Lajanche. We have a video with her talking about it, and because it ended the discussion. And I was thrilled to see, okay, we can move on.
We can move on. We
don't
know
have to argue it anymore.
Environmental triggers can trigger autism. And in fact, some children with identical genetics, one child can regress into autism and the other child may not.
But it's not, there is a gene component and there is an environment component.
Yes.
So there we have
so
it.
epigenetics, big word.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think we're going to take a break, and we've got a couple more stories and some good things to talk about. Your buddy Temple Grandin is going to be speaking soon, and we're going to give away some of these books.
Which is awesome.
For people that write into us.
This is my first time actually seeing the book. We talked about it with her. That episode of us talking with her airs next Tuesday morning.
Okay, so we're going to give away some of these, but we're going to take a break. We'll be back.
Yes, we'll be right back.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of May, I thought it'd be really neat if we made our own bird feeders. What's cool about it is once it's done and it's hung in your front yard, backyard, balcony, or whatever outdoor area that you have, your kids will be able to observe the bird feeder and tap when they see birds coming over and feeding from it. Like, oh my gosh, oh, so exciting. Do you see that? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just so excited about all the different birds I've been seeing now that I have a bird feeder hanging outside. Anywho, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2.5 cups of birdseed, half a cup of boiling water, 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, twine, scissors, wax paper, and cookie cutters. Alright, now that I got your materials, it's super easy. I have my boiling hot half cup of water, and I'm going to take my 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, and I'm going to pour them in and stir it. The reason I pour it in the water first all by itself is to make sure that the gelatin dilutes really well, and I can stir it up real nicely. Now that it's been all stirred together, I'm going to take this liquid and pour it into the birdseed, making sure to scrape up all the gelatin that we diluted. Now I'm just going to stir it all up. Okay, now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to take my wax paper and put it on my table, just so I don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my cookie cutter and lay it down. I'm also going to take a piece of string and cut it, about 6 inches long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the cookie cutter halfway full with our birdseed mixture. And I'm going to take my string, fold it in half, I'm going to place it in the center. This way you can hang this up once it's done and dry. Okay, now that it's full, I'm just going to pack it in. So now that this is all compacted, it's going to take about 6 hours for the gelatin to get completely hard. If you take it out too soon, the whole thing's going to fall apart. So let's wait a little bit, and I'll see you guys in a few moments. All right, it's been 6 hours now, so let's see if this little guy worked out. So I'm just going to pull him up and pop him out, okay? And here's my finished bird feeder. All you have to do now is hang it outside and wait for all the great things you're gonna see. Like, oh, I see another bird. This is so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the activity and keep me up to date with all the different birds that you and your child see outside your property. Until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Okay, we're back. We're back, and we've had, as Shannon mentioned, so many stories in the news, and one I covered last week. But I wanted to talk to you about it because I find it very, it brings up some ethical issues for all of us, okay, as autism moms.
Emotional issues.
Emotional issues.
Yeah.
And we have found out that there will be a $9 million effort financed by the National Institute of Mental Health to find effective drugs to treat autism. And it's basically going to be, this whole thing is being overseen by Dr. James McCracken, who is at UCLA as the director of the Division of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And right now they're saying, as you know, the epidemic is, you know, larger numbers than ever. Yeah. No drugs are currently approved to treat core symptoms of the disorders. However, many drugs are being given to kids on the spectrum to deal with some of the behaviors, such as aggressiveness, hyperactivity, and irritability. Yeah. We know a lot of families out there do have their child on ADD medication and serotonin reuptakers and anxiety, pills for anxiety disorder. So Dr. McCracken said they're going to identify 4 to 8 compounds. They're going to run them through trials in humans, and then they're going to try to crack it open. And they think it's so exciting because they know a lot more now than they understood 5 or 10 years ago. So the goal is to come up with a pill to treat your child's autism. So this, to me, brought up some issues, particularly after going to see the play On the Spectrum. Yeah. And the scene in which the mother, who has spent her life, her marriage fell apart, she went broke, I mean, all kinds of things in an effort to make her son as high functioning as possible and to recover him, let's be honest. Yes, yeah. So her big thing was he was going to go to law school, he was going to pass as typical. Yeah. And he falls in love with a severely autistic woman, and there's an amazing scene in the play where the girl who falls in love with him and says, if you could give him a pill to take away his Asperger's, you would. Yeah. I wouldn't. I love all of him. Yeah. And the minute she said that, I had to admit, yep, I'm one of those. If I could give my child a pill today to take away the stimming, if I could take away the, the litany of things he still does that are still autistic behaviors, getting stuck, perseverating. The tantrums are much less severe than they used to be, but Wyatt still has tantrums. Wyatt still gets stuck and has tantrums. And yet would that take away parts of him that I've grown to love? And the perseveration is what makes him such a great artist, which is what makes him can sit down and draw for hours. And so, I don't know, Shannon.
I don't know either. And this came up in our household last year when we covered some of the people doing the cord blood. Okay. Because the CDC approved the test that's happening right now in Arizona, and we're waiting results on it, but they approved for the treatment of autism for some kids who had their cord blood stored, that they could get an infusion of their original cord blood. And the thinking behind that, because they use cord blood, it's stem cell therapy, and they've done this with so many other they've done it with diabetes and a whole host of other disorders, and they had done it with cerebral palsy, that a child that had a brain injury at birth, but he had his DNA still in there, right? But something had happened, and so it was the environment that had caused him to have cerebral palsy. And in this one particular case, it's very well documented, they gave him a cord blood transplant, and the symptoms of cerebral palsy slipped away. Right. He was able to walk, and he got back because it restored the DNA, sort of the starting point is my understanding of it. So there have been people very quietly doing this who had stored their cord blood with kids with autism with some varying results. And we would expect to see some varying results because it doesn't fix anything that's genetic. It only fixes things, it only has the potential, let's say that, it only has the potential to fix things that were caused by environmental trauma.
Okay, so epigenetic.
Well, but if you had, there are certain genes that they've identified now that lead to certain kinds of autism, and if you had that, it's not going to fix the symptoms.
Okay.
But if your child was exposed to, say, mercury, then potentially it would reverse a certain portion of that.
Okay.
And so my husband and I had a conversation. We did not store cord blood because when we had Jem, I remember looking into it, and it was upwards of $10,000, and I just didn't have that laying around in a, you know, in a bag.
Well, we don't have any cord blood for Wyatt.
And but their expectation is that in a couple of years they'll be able to do what they're doing for other disorders and other diseases, where you can get a cord blood from someone else that's compatible and have it. But you know, that's a whole other. But I said to my husband, would we do that now? Would we do that? And we both kind of got misty and kind of cried. And I said, I don't think I could.
Yeah.
At this point in the game, and let me just tell you, I looked at it and said, wow, that's how good things are right now. Because when he was 3, are you kidding me? You wouldn't have had to ask me twice. I would have said, where do we sign up? Let's do it today. When we were in Tantrum City. And I asked our son, I said, if you could have something now that would totally reverse your autism. Now, he informed me that he doesn't have autism anymore.
Okay.
Right? Because that's where we are.
That's where you're at.
That's, you know, he said, I don't have autism anymore. And I said, well, you still have some characteristics of it, pal. And he's like, oh, I'll work on that. We don't need me to do it.
Yeah, we're a little close to that.
I bet you are.
Well, Wyatt says, if I told Wyatt you could take a pill and you won't have to have teachers anymore, which is what we call the therapist and a school aide, he'd say, give me the pill.
Yeah, give me the pill.
Because every day he goes, Mommy, I don't need teachers anymore.
Yeah, well, you know what? Then you're doing really good, because I remember the day that Jem said that and said, the therapists don't need to come anymore. Right. I don't want to do that. And Sienna Greener-Wooten said to him, okay, here's what you have to do.
Right, that's what I tell him. That's what I tell Wyatt. I'm like, well, when you stop wanting to splash all day, when you stop, having a tantrum and getting stuck.
Right.
Perseverating and getting stuck. We call it getting stuck.
Yeah. We call it that too.
Yeah. When you start doing those things and focusing, and then we can talk about no teachers.
Yeah.
But this idea, I don't know. At this point, probably not. Yeah. But like you said, and we had some moms write in last week, and while I was filling in for you, and I covered this story on Thursday, one mom wrote in and said, my child is nonverbal. Would I give him a pill if it could make him have the basic need of all humans to communicate? You bet I would.
And I would support her.
I would too. I mean, these families that have children with severe autism, if there were a pill, I say bring it on.
Yeah, believe me, no judgment.
Right. But, if you're talking about a child with Asperger's who is highly functioning and, so they've got some quirks. I can live with quirks. I can live with that.
But there are some. But I also think there are some kids who are on the spectrum that are aware enough who say, "I would make this go away." I talk to some of them,
and
they say, "If I could make this go away, I would." Sometimes they'll post on Facebook and on Wrong Planet and say, today I really hate autism.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that I have no idea. I just obviously did something in a conversation. I have no idea what it was. And now this person doesn't want to talk to me.
Right.
And I just want to be able to work and have a loving relationship like everybody else.
Sure.
And if that's what's in the way, then I think there are so many different sides to the argument. It's really personal.
I do too, Shannon. And I also want to say, because I know I'm speaking for both of us here, that when we talk about recovery and we talk about allowing your child to become the best they can be, we are in no way making a blanket statement that any individuals on the spectrum are not to be respected for who they are, and the world does not need to be more understanding of people with ASD. The world does need to adjust to them, but right now we live in a neurotypical world, and I think most parents of children on the spectrum want them to have all the skills they need to be able to function in that world. And we're talking about, when we talk about recovery, is making your child, giving your child all the tools they need to be the best they can be to function in this world. And whether that's becoming a Temple Grandin.
Yep.
And still being on the spectrum.
Right, or an Alex Plank.
Or an Alex Plank.
Spectrum.
It doesn't necessarily mean losing the diagnosis. It means we want all children, and we believe all children have the right to become the best they can be.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And I appreciate you saying that. We've had a couple of comments come in since we started, and because I talked about being lucky, you talked about being lucky, and somebody wrote in and said, "I'm blessed too because I found you guys." Which was very sweet.
That made my day.
Yes, doesn't it? And somebody else said, so if I wanted to get my son tested, when we were talking about the blood test, if I wanted to get my son tested for autism at age 11, all he needs is a blood test. Let's keep in mind that they're doing a study on it now. So if you wanted to be a part of that study, we've shared before on the show that there's a site where you can participate in different studies. It sounds like they already have the participants for this particular study, but it was, let's spell it out for you, the name of the company. I've got it right here.
Yeah.
It was
so you can look it up.
Here it is. SYNAPDX Corporation. SYNAPDX Corporation. And they're doing it in many different cities across the United States and Canada. So if you want to participate in it, that you can definitely do that. And someone else wrote in and said, Shannon, I see you have an art segment because we do the Smarty every month.
I love that.
We have a cooking segment. Yes. That's the What's Left.
Right.
What about a music segment? I just love your show so much. I want to include my son too. I think that's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea.
We'll get on that.
Let's do it.
We have a lot of things we have to get on here. But so the next thing that we were going to talk about,
the Obamacare switch and children being caught in the middle, which is a big concern.
Yeah.
On April 1st, California officials began moving the approximately 900,000 children statewide from healthy families into the state Medi-Cal program. The move is part of the large-scale realignment of services happening as officials prepare for the implementation of the Federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, and our president has signed off on that name, beginning January 2014. In Orange County, there are about 35,000 children from healthy families being moved from 3 private insurance carriers into Cal Optima, the county-run health plan that handles Medi-Cal. Cal Optima spokeswoman Kelly Todd estimated there are at least several dozen children with autism receiving ABA therapy in the 22,000 transferred on April 1st. It has been beyond disappointment to lose insurance coverage to this precious ABA therapy, said Rachel Harris, who had previously quit her job to aid her son. She contributes his dramatic progress to applied ABA therapy, which he started during the Healthy Families program, which has the state's subsidized plan for children. So, my understanding is these children are going to lose their coverage for ABA because of the switch to Obamacare.
Yeah.
Okay? So, statewide, at least 200 complaints have been made about the loss of ABA services, Budget Subcommittee records show. The loss in services, it just goes on and on to say that from the transition from Healthy Families to Medi-Cal, this cannot... It's really incomprehensible that because of this, children are going to lose their access to ABA. Now, I do happen to know that our friends in Sacramento, Senator Darrell Steinberg, and some of our other senators, Senator Steinberg is the president of the Senate.
Right.
He is committed to having Medi-Cal cover ABA therapy. Yeah. And I will actually get us an update on that so we can share it with you.
Great.
But let me get it broken down for us so it's not a lot of legislative speak. And let me get an update for us to share with you on that.
Yeah. And I just want to say one thing, that when things change, we all know this. Like when you move from one house to another, it's a mess for a while.
Yes.
It's just a mess. And it would be easy to, I know there were a couple of different times when we were getting ABA therapy that I thought we were going to lose our funding for various and sundry different legislative things that were going to happen, and I thought the sky was falling. And I was on the phone calling everybody I knew and getting a hold of people. And so I appreciate, this is important. This is really important, and if you are somebody who's affected, you need to step up and raise your hand and say, I'm one of the people affected, and there are people who want to listen. But what I discovered is that when you make it known that it's going to affect, that there are, in the state of California, I can't speak in every other state, but in the state of California, there are great minds who listen and react.
Yes.
And we never lost our ABA funding, even though there were a couple of times that we looked like we were going to, because smart minds listened to those of us who spoke up. So you're going to check into what's happening with this?
I'm going to find out from Dr. Lou Vismara, who is the consultant to Senator Steinberg, and he was one of the founders of the Mind Institute. I'm also going to talk to our own Julie Kornack, who is the public policy analyst at Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and see, because I do believe there is some form of legislation that's being prepared to get, this is 1 million, we're 100,000 short of 900,000 children. I mean, we cannot take ABA therapy away from 900,000 children.
And I think we all understand that that's not what it was intended to do. And so let's figure it out. You know, I'm just saying, if you can help yourself, try not to panic, but let's make it known you're one of the people that's being affected. And for those of you who right now, even with the legislation that is passed, who are still outside and can't get ABA, remember that the regional center is supposed to pick up the tab on the people who can't get it through their insurance. So if you're in the state of California and you do not have ABA at this moment, that's a real crisis for me that I want to say to you, that's not acceptable. Let's figure out who you need to talk to, because everybody is supposed to have it right now, or access to it.
So we're going to look into that and find out what the plans are to help this transition from healthy families into the Medi-Cal program to keep the ABA going. Okay, so we wanted to promote your wonderful friend who I've not yet had the pleasure to meet.
We have to get you to meet her because she's amazing.
So Temple Grandin is speaking. Temple Grandin is speaking. Oh my gosh, we've been talking up a storm. She's speaking on Wednesday, May 22nd at the LA Public Library. I believe Emily has a link. I'm not sure, but you can contact the LA Public Library and call us if you're interested write in if you're interested in getting a book. We have some to give away.
Okay. So write into us on our Facebook page and say, I would like to have a book. We don't know, do we know how many we have?
We have quite a few.
But it's first come, first served. So write in if you want a book.
And we'll mail it out to you.
Yes.
Emily, should we go to the ATMF recap video?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I'm in running clothes is because the LA Times was doing a story on my running group, raising money for autism, but also it was perfect attire because we have the recap of our Act Today for Military Families
Which was a lovely event.
And festival. So we're going to go to that now, and we'll talk about it when we come back.
Okay, here it is.
On Saturday, April 6th, 2013, over 1,000 people came out to participate in the 3rd annual One Hope Act Today for Military Families 5K, 10K Run Walk and Family Festival, which supports military children impacted with autism.
And I think really the main point is, A, have a great time, but B, really raise some awareness of what's going on in the autism community, and more importantly, what's going on in the military community with family members who have autism.
Let's hear it for the military!
All of our kids with autism need a great deal of assistance. We know that early intervention is the key. And what's especially devastating is our military families. These are young men and women who are putting themselves in harm's way. Often they have children that are on the autism spectrum. Even when they have options for services, they move every 2 years and they have to get on waiting lists and start over. So it is so important that we support these young men and women and their families while they're doing it, by all accounts, a difficult job.
Ready, begin! Our country! Our country!
My name
name's Lieutenant Colonel Juarez, Commanding Officer, 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion here at Camp Pendleton, 1st Marine Division. We have families in the battalion that have children with autism, so this has kind of become a tradition for our unit to come out and support acts. We're going to do the 5K in a formation, 66 Marines, but there's also other individuals out here from the unit that are running in the 10K as well.
All right, racers, on your mark, get set.
The support from the community has been amazing. And when I learned that our military families have trouble accessing services, I said, that's just wrong. And that's what we're doing here. We've raised over $200,000 that's gone directly to the families, over 200 families around the country, and we intend to bring it into the millions. And this is the third, and there'll be many, many more.
3, 2, 1. Rockin' that beat. Oh yeah, keep rocking that beat. Rockin' that beat. Oh yeah, keep rocking that beat. Get it, rockin' that beat. Get it, oh yeah, keep rocking that beat. Get it, rockin' that beat. Oh yeah, keep rocking that beat. Now go.
We about to lift you right. You know the feeling's right. Show up on the floor. Make sure you still that spotlight. All eyes are on you. Here's what you have to prove. Bring all the attitude. See this while you do your groove.
Thank you for coming out today to support.
Was that a fun event or what?
It was very fun. You didn't get to see the very end of the tape, but we'll show that another time.
Okay.
But it was a beautiful event. It was a beautiful day, and I had never been to it before. You've talked about this for a long time, and I will say
it was our third.
You know, it was hard. You know, for us, because where we live, to get down there at that hour of the morning was a little bit of a a thing.
Yeah.
But was so thrilled. My son had such a good time. We all had and I met some wonderful people. Nancy, it's a lovely, lovely event.
It really is a great event, and I just want to say, if you would like to support a military family with a child with autism, I think you heard a bit about what they go through, and I mean, seeing the way they support each other. I mean, these are our nation's heroes, let's face it.
Yes.
These are the people that keep us safe. The reason we're sitting here today is because of our armed services keeping us safe. And when you put autism into the equation of the difficult life of a military family, how often they move, parents deployed, they really need our support. You can go to Act Today's website, act-today.org. You can go to our Act Today for Military Family and make a donation. Every bit helps.
Yeah, every bit, literally.
Every bit.
I know we always think, oh well, I don't have anything to give, but literally $1 makes a difference.
Yeah,
and sharing.
There are other ways to raise money. Your kids can do a lemonade stand. You can hold a car wash. You could even hold a party. Maybe you're in the military and you say, and another great thing to do, which I'm doing this week, is hold a party and have, instead of gifts, I'm doing a little birthday, I don't know if you can see this, a birthday bash with my girlfriend.
Birthday?
Well, my birthday is May 12th.
Okay.
It's Mother's Day.
All right.
But we're doing a birthday bash. We're having all these fitness and beauty experts. We're giving our friends the gifts. And we're saying, in lieu of a gift, make a little donation to Act Today.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. But I brought my dad's hat. I was wearing it in the video. I ran in it. My dad, this 3rd Division Marines, was during World War II in the South Pacific. But my father, a great military man, and also raised a child with Down syndrome and had great love for his grandson with autism, and he left me this last year, and I just want to take this moment to honor him and everything he taught me about life.
That's a wonderful thing.
So we have one more thing to talk about for support.
Okay.
There is a bill SB 705 here in California, which appropriates $50 million for community college programs to assist students with autism and, of course, other disabilities. SB 705, which is co-authored by Senator Darrell Steinberg, our big champion in the Senate, will provide crucial funding for the Disabled Students Programs and Services, DSPS. The rally and hearing for this bill is Wednesday. It's happening today. If any of you are in Sacramento, go on over to the steps of the Capitol. It would be great to have you attend the event, and we will keep you informed because it's these two key programs. It's restoring funding to these programs to help our kids with autism and other disabilities achieve their dreams of a college education. You can send letters of support for SB 705 to the Senate Committee on Education. The fax number I'm going to give you now, 916-445-7799. If you have a pen, 916-445-7799. Fax a letter in support of SB 705 so our kids can get a college education.
And it's important to note, too, that you can send a letter even if you don't live in the state of California, even if you don't live in the United States. Like, let people know what that you can say, I live in Indiana.
Right.
But this kind of legislation is important to me because what you do affects the rest of the world.
And thank you for reminding us of that, because Senator Steinberg believes, as goes California, goes the nation.
Absolutely.
So if we get this passed here, then other states will look at passing it.
Yeah.
And I'm just hoping Senator Steinberg has national aspirations, because I think he's our most remarkable champion.
Yeah, I'll make the coffee for that campaign.
Okay, good. And I'm going to help him get elected.
Because he has been a true champion.
He has.
There have Assemblyman Perez, there have been a bunch of people in California who really made a difference.
Yes.
But
Senator
Steinberg is the person who said, when they were done with the insurance reform in California and said, this is dead, and he said, no, sir, I'm sorry.
He fought for it.
Buck stops here. It stops with me, and I'm making this my priority, and I'm not doing anything else till we have this, and he made it happen in like 30 days.
Yes.
He's amazing.
He is.
Amazing. But we are out of time. A couple of different things. We want to remind people that if you want a Temple Grandin book, you can send us on on Facebook, or you can email to us if you don't want your email address on Facebook. You can just email us privately about that. And we are going to have Temple Grandin. We recorded a segment with her last week. It'll be airing on Tuesday on Autism Live. So it starts at like 10:15ish on that day.
Great.
So I can't wait.
So if you want the book, write us here. Get in touch with us. We've got some copies available, and we'll get them out to you first come, first serve. Right?
There you go. So, such a thrill to be here with you today. Thank you again for last week. Early happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And do you want to end with Mother Teresa?
I want to remind you, give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you've got anyway. And remember to give your kiddos a hug from me. That's right. And me too. And a hug to yourself.
There you go. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.